You probably already know that Bitcoin has just reached a new all-time high and is now sitting at around $117,000 per Bitcoin. But I bet you have no idea that if Bitcoin simply repeats what it did in 2013, 2017, and 2020, it could climb to $230,000 in just 14 days. That sounds crazy, I know, but we're going to take a close look at how this could actually work. We'll also talk about the 3 reasons why I believe that in this bull market over the next 6 months, Bitcoin will not only break through the stock-to-flow model, but also another model. Bitcoin is very likely to outperform the models we know today. But before we discuss all of that, let's first take a look at what we can expect in the next 13 days. Let's just take a look at the whole thing. In 3 of the last 4 instances when Bitcoin surpassed the new all-time high, it doubled in value in 18 days or less. Think about it. As soon as you break an all-time high with Bitcoin, it enters price discovery. What is this thing really worth? The world tries to figure that out. And in 3 out of 4 cases in the past, the price doubled in no time. On top of that, there's the Bitcoin halving. We've gone from 909 Bitcoins per day down to 450, and now it's really hard to argue that Bitcoin won't rise much higher and faster than any of us expect. And don't worry, that's exactly the point we're going to make clear today.
When we look at past record high breaks, or if we surpass the previous all-time high, 3 out of 4 times Bitcoin doubled in 18 days or less. So just think about that for a second. Once you break through an all-time high, it's price discovery. What is this thing worth? The world is going to try to figure that out. And 3 of the last 4 times in 18 days or less, it doubled in price. Add to that the fact that we have the halving coming up, and we're going to go from 900 Bitcoins a day entering the supply to 450. And it's very hard to argue that Bitcoin isn't going much higher and at a faster pace than any of us expect.
We show why Bitcoin will soar much higher and faster than most people expect. Because in this cycle, we not only have the halving, but also a real supply squeeze caused by publicly traded companies putting Bitcoin on their balance sheets as the perfect reserve asset and simply not selling it. And that's one of 3 factors driving the Bitcoin price even higher. But now, let's dive deep into this supply squeeze. First, I want to explain the math behind this to you, and also explain what happens in the 14 days following a new all-time high for Bitcoin. Hardly anyone knows that. In 3 out of 4 cases in the past, a new all-time high for Bitcoin has occurred after Bitcoin reached a new all-time high. So Bitcoin has exploded as soon as it climbed above previous record highs. And every time Bitcoin breaks through to a new all-time high, there's a fireworks display to the upside, and it's never predictable. Most people are completely caught off guard when it happens. And I simply believe that the next 14 days could turn out to be even more bullish than many people can imagine. Of course, no one knows exactly where Bitcoin will go in the short term, and all of this is happening right now, just as it looks like the money printers are being switched back on. And before we discuss that, let's talk about the first reason why I'm currently so incredibly bullish on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. It's about the supply shortage. That's really picking up speed. This isn't happening slowly anymore. It's getting crazier and crazier. It's getting more bullish every day. By now, everyone is talking about this Bitcoin shortage and how little Bitcoin is left on the OTC desks. For companies, it's all about who can get the most Bitcoin, who's buying the most Bitcoin. That's why you see the amounts on the OTC desk or exchanges going down. Of course, the price then has to be adjusted upward, or will adjust upward, because people don't want to sell their Bitcoin at $170,000 or $180,000 per Bitcoin. And that's the Bitcoin story we've been seeing for 15 years. The price has to rise to convince a few people to sell so that new buyers can come in. And that's the cycle we've seen now or keep seeing over and over again. The Bitcoin price has to go up to get the old holders to sell. And right now, we're seeing that people don't want to give up their Bitcoin. And in this bull market, in this bull run, something completely new is happening, something we've never experienced before. A real Bitcoin shortage, and that's unusual. In 2013 and 2017, when Bitcoin went through a 12 to 18-month bull market, coins usually ended up on exchanges because people were taking profits. But now, the exact opposite is happening. Bitcoin reserves on exchanges are simply shrinking away, and that's something we've never seen before. A lot of people are withdrawing their Bitcoin because they expect the Bitcoin price to rise to, say, 1 million and keep going up, since they've seen that Bitcoin and other cryptos aren't safe on exchanges, and that exchanges have been hacked and Bitcoin has been taken down. They store their Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies offline. If you want to do the same, which I recommend, click the link in the description below the video. You should definitely do it. There's even a journalist who said on US television that there's an absolute buying frenzy going on. Publicly traded companies can take on billions in debt, and they're using that to buy Bitcoin, to buy even more Bitcoin. We're in a race. They're competing with each other to grab more and more.
Institutional move, purchasing 3,700 Bitcoin at an average price of $103,000 just yesterday. And the question is, right, there isn't a lot of Bitcoin left. I mean, it sounds like the Wild West right now. Where do you find this Bitcoin?
Yeah, so we now own 4,950 Bitcoin. Our goal is to buy as much Bitcoin as we possibly can. I like to think that now there's a new professional sport for Bitcoiners, which is who can acquire the most Bitcoin. And as much as we want to buy as much Bitcoin as possible, there are a lot of other companies that want to do this as well. And so to your point, what you're starting to see is that OTC desks or maybe Bitcoin on exchanges, those numbers are going down. And so naturally, the price will have to readjust upwards because people don't want to sell their Bitcoin at $107,000, $108,000. This has been the story of Bitcoin for 15 years now. As Bitcoin's price has to go up to convince some people to sell to the new people who want to buy the Bitcoin.
We're now seeing a Bitcoin buying frenzy that didn't exist in 2021. Back then, hardly any public companies were interested in Bitcoin. It was just a niche product, but now they're pouring into the Bitcoin market and want to buy more and more. We're seeing more and more publicly listed companies joining in, and they're acquiring Bitcoin in the most unusual ways that we normally wouldn't consider. In the past few months, 23 public companies have added Bitcoin to their balance sheets. 23 companies, that's almost one per week, so nearly one per day. And on average, these large treasury companies hold 6,000 Bitcoin. And if a new company wants to buy 6,000 Bitcoin, but only 450 are newly mined each day, the numbers just don't add up. The supply is getting scarcer and scarcer, and I believe that's going to be the biggest driver for an exponential entry into Bitcoin. Like an S-curve or adoption driven by FOMO, that is the fear of missing out. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. We could see an 8-fold increase from the current price, and that would be a Bitcoin price heading toward Larry Fink's prediction of $700,000 per Bitcoin.
If you are genuinely afraid of the potential debasement of your national currency, or if you are deeply worried about the economic or political stability of your particular country, you could potentially have an internationally based financial instrument, specifically called Bitcoin, that will effectively overcome those significant local fears and concerns. And so I'm a big believer in using that as an instrument. And so if that becomes true and you see that it could actually be a proper hedge against, say, securities or equities, the question is, could you see a 2 or 5% allocation? I was with the Sovereign Wealth Fund this week, and that was the conversation. Should we have a 2% allocation? Should we have a 5% allocation? If everyone started having that conversation, it would mean 500,000, 600,000, 700,000 per Bitcoin.
Well, does it also...
I'm not promoting it, by the way. So that's not my endorsement or...
Basically, that's much higher than Larry Fink from BlackRock's forecast. And on top of that, Gemini has released a new report showing that every dollar flowing into Bitcoin increases the market value by 8 times. And that's an average. And in volatile phases, it can even go up to 25 times, especially during short squeezes or when there are few sellers. And now combine all of that with retailers, institutions, companies, and governments buying Bitcoin. It could be perfect for a 25-fold multiplier. Basically, everything looks extremely bullish, and it's only a matter of time before the price goes much, much higher. You don't need to get rich from Bitcoin in this bull market. If you have 0 Bitcoin today, don't listen to Mellison, instead to the world's major asset managers. Like BlackRock, for example. BlackRock and many others keep saying it, they're massively pushing Bitcoin. The biggest one, BlackRock, recommends a 2% allocation. The second largest bank in Spain even suggests 7%. And Charles Schwab advises a 10% allocation. They're looking at the same charts as we are and coming to the same conclusions. Bitcoin is rising faster and higher than many can imagine, faster than you think. And another catalyst is that this time there are no headwinds. Basically, there's only tailwind from politicians. Bitcoin is being accepted worldwide. Even America is embracing it. The US is set to become a crypto capital. The new financial system is coming, and that forces the rest of the world to pay close attention. America has the world's reserve currency, and now they're saying we like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies and we want a strategic reserve. And that's completely crazy and accelerates a race among nations to acquire more Bitcoin. Bloomberg terminals show Bitcoin is at an all-time high, and in the EU and Australia, a central bank digital currency is being planned. It is simply inevitable what's coming. I think Bitcoin will reach $230,000 faster than many can imagine. And with the next halving, Bitcoin could go much, much higher. One fact is clear. New buyers are coming, including public pension funds. Some are already up 12-fold because they invested in Bitcoin. And if they all invest just 1% of their portfolios in Bitcoin, many funds could be fully funded again. Then there are the sovereign wealth funds. They could get involved through ETFs without holding Bitcoin directly. And if a major fund announces this, a global race will begin. Guaranteed. Gold might rise as well, because debt is exploding and liquidity is increasing. Bitcoin is basically an index for global liquidity. Bitcoin could reach 10 times its value, up to 210 trillion, because it has the largest addressable market. And this will especially happen as global liquidity continues to rise, and it will, because money is being printed without limit, and Bitcoin will then correlate with that. And in Turkish lira, one Bitcoin already costs over 4 million. Incredibly scarce, and you have to realize only 0.26% of the world's population could ever own a whole Bitcoin. Treasury companies could accumulate 50%. So prepare yourself for what is coming. In bull markets, for example, exchanges freeze when there's a rush on platforms like Coinbase, as we've seen in the past when the market rises, basically due to the influx of people. And experience from various bull markets shows Bitcoin's best 10 days outperform the rest of the year. So remember that. Be mentally prepared for the rapid surges that are coming. Mainstream forecasts $150,000 to $200,000 per Bitcoin, but I think we could go much higher. Don't sell in a panic when that happens, for example at $150,000 or $200,000 per Bitcoin. Instead, borrow money against your Bitcoin. Don't sell your Bitcoin, see it as an asset to pass on, and only borrow money against it while keeping your Bitcoin offline. You can find the link for that in the description below the video. And if you want to achieve financial independence through Bitcoin and crypto, you'll also find the link for that in the description below the video. And one important thing to remember at the end, ETFs are not real Bitcoin. Only buy real Bitcoin. The bull market is just beginning, new all-time highs are coming quickly, and I thank you for watching.